How do you explain this massacre? I am back with another spooky story. I know we said we were done with South Africa for now, but we gotta pivot back for this spooky story. So once there was a girl named Elizabeth. One day she decided to go and pick some blueberries, and she picked a ton of them. She went back home and decided to make a blueberry cake. She bakes the cake and puts the cake in the freezer for it to freeze and, just let it sit. So she completely forgets about the cake and goes about her day. Her mother comes home and looks in the freezer and sees this delicious blueberry cake. It looked really good, so Mama wanted to try it. So the mother took the cake out of the freezer, and what she saw baked into the cake, I guess you can call it creepy, her mother found a note. And in the note read, "I'm coming for you. Don't hide. I'm in your house." Yes, that was on the note in the cake. So the mother, being confused and creeped out, decided, oh nah, let me call Elizabeth and see what this is about. So her mother calls her and tells her everything. Tells her about the cake, tells her about the note, and tells her to come home. Elizabeth drops everything she's doing and runs home. Elizabeth gets home and her mother hands her the note so she can take a look at it herself. So Elizabeth is looking at the note, she's just as confused, and on the back of the note, there was a number on the note. So she took out her phone and she dialed in the number. And it's been rumored that once the phone was picked up, it wasn't a person that answered the phone, more so something. So the thing answered the phone and it gave her an address, and that thing instructed her to come at 10 p.m. with her mother and 2 of her friends, and also come at the exact date, which would have been the 30th of July. And fair enough, on the 30th of July. So that day, the 3 other people that were going with Elizabeth were her mother's sister, and her sister. So they followed the address and it led them to this old, abandoned looking apartment. And it looks pretty freaky, pretty spooky all on its own. And shit, they were already there, so they decided to just enter. They walk in the apartment on edge, and as they all get inside, the door behind them just shuts closed. Startled by this, they all turned around. And standing behind them was this figure in all black with a knife. Obviously, the Elizabeth family are horrified. They're all trying to escape, running for their lives. Unfortunately, they weren't successful, and they were never to be heard from again. So now fast forward to 2 years later. After the Elizabeth family disappeared, they weren't the only ones, as families and people that were perfectly fine were just up and mysteriously disappearing. 2 years later, the police department heard of another crime, so they went to check out the scene. And those police officers would stumble across one of the most heinous things that they've ever witnessed in their careers. As the investigators discovered over 29 unalived bodies, chopped up, and all those body parts were stuffed inside black bags. And amongst the 29 victims, 4 of them were Elizabeth, her mother's sister, and her sister. Wow, that was a spooky one. This story is the definition of dark and mysterious. Thank you for submitting this story, Your Cupcake. If you have a dark, spooky, unexplainable story that you'd like me to tell, feel free to submit them to me via TikTok or DM them to me on Instagram or send me a voice note on Instagram. And if you don't know, my YouTube has some new content on there that you guys just have not seen. So if you want more of these dark and mysterious stories, make sure you find me on YouTube. I have longer, better, and spookier stories out there. If you're not already, it is crucial that you follow me on Instagram. Get your girl to 10K just so that I know that it's real. Is it real though? Okay, prove that. Follow me on Instagram. Besides that, I love you, my abducted humans. Catch you guys in the next video from your favorite Haitian homegirl. I know I'm late, but this is my pink tote lid moment. Oh, trigger warning. So my father, for as long as I've known him, has always been very militant and just straight up abusive. So much so that there are certain things about him that would trigger me. Like hearing the sound of his keys jingling when he's coming home would invoke this feeling of fear. So when I was a teenager, I was basically the scapegoat of the house. Whenever my father would come home from work or has anything going on in his life, he would always take out his frustration on whoever was home. My sister made it her thing to keep herself as busy and as away from that house as possible. And 16, 17-year-old me still in school, I had no choice but to be home. And so I would find myself catching a lot of strays. A lot. Like this one. This story might have been one of the most pivoting stories of my life because just listen. Well, at the time I was 17 years old. It's a Saturday morning. I wake up and I knew that my father did not work on weekends. So I woke up that morning. I went to the kitchen. I cleaned up the kitchen from top to bottom. Then I moved on to the living room. I cleaned up the living room. I mopped all of that. Then went into the bathroom. I cleaned the tub. I cleaned the toilet. I cleaned the floor. I took out the trash. And I'm thinking I'm good. I'm gonna have a chill Saturday. So in my living room at the time was like the family computer. So I had plans on sitting out there during the Saturday and just watch my YouTube videos. But I already know before I can relax, I have to get my chores done first, which is why I woke up and I did what I needed to do. At that point, my father's not home, no one's home, I'm home by myself. So I'm sitting on the computer, I'm watching my little YouTube videos. And as I'm chilling there watching my YouTube videos, in comes my father. He comes home and just by the way he was walking and breathing, I could just feel something was wrong. So he walks into the kitchen and I can't see him once he walks into the kitchen. He walks back out and he starts walking up and down the living room and he's just looking around. And I say hi, he doesn't say anything to me, he's just looking around and then he goes into the bathroom. At that point, he's in the bathroom for like a good 2 minutes. When all of a sudden, I hear, "You disgusting pig. How dare you think you're gonna wake up in the morning and sit your ass down here and get on the computer and do nothing, not clean up the house. Look at this bathroom. It's disgusting." And y'all, the minute I hear him, my heart drops because like I did clean. What did I miss? He then calls me into the bathroom. I go into the bathroom and he's like, "Look behind the sink." And I look behind the sink and evidently I forgot to wipe down the sink. I cleaned up everything else, but I forgot to wipe down the freaking sink. No problem. I'm a problem solver. So I go into the kitchen, I grab some tissue, come back into the bathroom and I wipe down the sink. No problem. So after I wipe down the sink, I know you're in a bad mood now. I'm definitely not going to sit out in the living room and relax anymore. So I go into the living room, I grab my stuff, and I head into my bedroom. And he's still in the bathroom. To get to my bedroom, you have to pass the bathroom, and then my bedroom is right there. I had like an iPad in my hand. I pass the bathroom and I go into my room. Y'all, I swear to God, when I got to my room, because I know my father, I closed that door so delicately. That was a point of focus for me because I didn't want to give my father any reason. I literally held the knob and slowly closed the door. I'm thinking I'm safe. I get about 2 steps into my room. This man budges in my room. And he's like, "Who the fuck are you slamming the door at?" I turn around and I'm confused because again, y'all, on my soul, I did not slam that door. He starts going off on me about slamming the door and I'm just quiet because I can't even process what's going on right now and I'm scared. Before I can even react, this man pushes me. I stumble into my bedroom window and on the window there was a cup there. As I'm trying to catch my balance, I accidentally grabbed the cup. Again, everything is happening so fast. I'm holding this cup and he's now like, "Oh, are you about to hit me with that cup?" And I'm like, "What cup?" And I look down and I'm holding a freaking cup. So I go to put the cup down. Before I can even do that, I am being dragged to the floor by my hair. So he's dragging me on the floor and he's just swinging and kicking. Yo, this man is beating my ass. I don't mean to laugh, but this is how I deal. So I'm on the floor at this point and he's just dragging me from north to south. He is whooping me like a bitch on the street. Like, I guess at some point when he got it out, he walked out and I remember I was sitting on the floor. And I remember I'm sitting on the floor and my heart just starts to break because it starts to dawn on me that my father hates me. I was so done with life. And I remember just sitting there just thinking like, and saying aloud, like, "You hate me, Dad. Like, you hate me. This is the only explanation for this. I did nothing to you. You hate me." I did nothing to him. And I remember I'm saying, "You hate me. You hate me. This is the only reason why you would do this." And I remember he walks back into my room and says, "Oh yeah, I hate you. I'm about to show you hate." The man beats me up again and drags me by my hair out of my room, past the bathroom to the living room and told me to get the fuck out. If I don't like having a home to live in, because if he hated me, he would have never given me a home. So after that happened, he left. And at that point, I remember I'm sitting on the floor. I get back into my room and I'm just contemplating my life. I remember I'm sitting on the floor and I look over next to me and there was like one of those eyebrow shaver things that was there. And I decided that I was going to... I'm so sorry, guys. Trigger warning. I'm so sorry. So I'm sitting there. I grabbed the shaver and I was going to, So I'm sitting on the floor, both of my knees are down like this. This rage just hits me and I just do one clean swipe. Pew! Except I missed my wrist and I winded up catching my leg. I remember right after it was done, the anger just subsided instantly and I looked down and I realized what I had done to myself. I called my sister because I needed to go to the hospital. And I couldn't bear telling my sister that I was psychotic enough to do this to myself. I told her that while my dad was beating on me, he drugged me so much that a nail must have sliced me open. So she left work, took me to the hospital, and when I got to the hospital, I had to lie about the whole thing in general so they don't, bring ACS to the home. And it was so bad that I needed 31 stitches. Yeah. So needless to say, God forbid, had it been my initial plan, I wouldn't be here to tell this story today. And right after it happened, something in me died in that moment, I guess I could say, because I realized that I wanted to live. And later that day, I found out that my father, earlier that morning, stay with me now, his gal that lives in Florida that he was supposed to get married to, he found out that morning when he tried to call her that she eloped because her man picked up the phone and said that this woman is spoken for to my father. So yeah, he was having a bad day and I was home. So anyway, from your favorite Haitian homegirl, this story is too long. So this is what happened after I got to the hospital. So after the whole situation happened, my sister left work and she took me to the hospital. And when I got there, I lied. I made up some excuse, which, come to think about it, I think the staff just didn't care enough to investigate because the whole side of my leg was split open and it was absolutely heinous. So I finally go into the doctor's room and they start stitching me up. And yes, I sat there for 31 stitches. And before they stitched it up, my sister had taken a picture of my leg while it was open. Like I said, it looked crazy. I begged my sister to not tell my father about the fact that I just went to the hospital. And she was like, well, how are we going to hide it considering that we're going to get a hospital bill to the house months later? And I'm like, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but I would prefer you not say anything to him about this. Because genuinely, I didn't want my father to know. I told my sister that this happened because while he was whooping my ass and dragging me, something must have cut me open, when realistically he did beat my ass, but I did that to myself. So I didn't want her to tell him so that he can come up with whatever theories in his mind. Because one thing my father can do is make sense out of a situation for him. Regardless of how delusional and crazy his reasoning sounds, as long as it makes sense to him, he's Gucci. And at that point, I understood that I'm a little bit mental. I just genuinely did not want the man to know. Now, they stitched me up. I got this big ass band-aid on my leg and I'm on my way home. And because the universe is so... We get on the bus to get home and literally a couple stops after us. Guess who gets on the exact same bus? My dad. He walks in on the bus, he sees me and my sister, and he sits across from us. He doesn't say anything to me, I don't say anything to him, and my heart is in my ass. My sister goes and sits next to him. And something in her just touched her to show my father the picture of my leg. Yes, the picture of my leg being ripped open. And the second my father saw that picture, I could just see on his face how sick he got. My sister was trying to do a teachable moment right here, trying to tell him, and this is why it's not okay to whoop your kids. Immediately, my father got upset. He caused a scene on the bus, called me a liar, said that he did not do this to me at all, and he looked like he was on the verge of tears, dead ass. This man looked like he was about to cry. He was like, I did not do this to her. And he looks over at me and he says, make sure you're not in the house by the time I get back. Because by that point, he already figured in his mind that I must have done this to myself either to get him arrested. He couldn't fathom that I would do this to myself. So the second option was that I had my friends come over the second he left, and I had my friends do this to my leg so I can pin it on him so I can send him to prison so he can get deported. So he told me that he's getting off the bus because he's sick to his stomach, but by the time he gets home, make sure I'm not there. I was 17, nowhere to go. So I get home before him, and I remember just sitting there, just anxiety is not even the word. Fear is not even the word. I am miles past anxious and fear. Like, this is the worst case scenario. In walks my father, and I'm just bracing myself. I don't say anything to him, and I think at that point he genuinely must have been too scared to physically handle me or manhandle me out the house. that all he did was ask me to return the keys that, you know, I used to access the house. I gave him those keys back. He cussed me out for the rest of the night and called all his friends and told all of them how I'm a trave, or I guess an accuser of some sort. Now, I never intended on accusing my father of doing this to me. Now, I did not say that my father did this to me. I was implying that while he was whooping me and dragging me, something must have, you know, sliced my leg open. But in retrospect, that would have pinned the whole situation on him. When in reality, I just felt that my father hated me and I didn't have a reason to live anymore. And I thought that maybe if I died, he would feel sorry and he would realize in that moment that, you know, he actually did like me. Again, it's a traumatized mind, because now at 26, I realize how out of my mind I was. But pretty much he stopped speaking to me after that. He did not speak to me for 2 weeks. Yes, like every day I woke up and went about my business, he did not say a single word to me. Until the end of the 2-week mark, yes, I counted. Yes, we were still living in the same house. I remember I had like a dance rehearsal of some sort. It was early morning and I was on my way to my dance rehearsal. My father, of course, he ain't giving me any money and I didn't have a job, but I had a bunch of like quarters saved up. I used to use those quarters to like, you know, get myself some breakfast, like a banana or something like that from the corner store before I get to dance practice. So I stopped at the corner store to get myself like a snack before dance, and my father was in the same store. I remember when I walked in, I was like, I should just walk back out. But he had already seen me, so I was like, whatever. I remember I got my regular 50-cent banana and a $1 muffin, and I go to pay for it, and my father walks behind me and he paid for it for me. And he told me to have a good dance practice. And that was his way of apologizing. And I remember forgetting all of my pain, and all the love that I had for my father just came rushing back in that moment, which is fucked up, because this is how people wind up in domestic relationships, okay? Because that's not okay. I had to learn that when I got older. My father never took accountability for anything, and I never expect him to. And no, he wasn't just violent with me. The violence didn't never stop with me. My sister has her own set of stories. My mother in the grave has her own set of stories. My trauma really started watching my mother and my father go at it. And you know, my mother, she held her own for show. One day they fought so bad. They woke me up at 4 in the morning. I woke up to glass breaking at 4 in the morning. And they both ran away from home on Christmas. Christmas is also my sister's birthday. So both parents ran away, left their 2 kids in the home alone. And one of them, it was their birthday. The ghetto. And also, a lot of y'all wanted to know in the last video, where was my mom? I'm assuming you guys are new, but she passed away when I was 11. Anyways, y'all, that was pretty much the end of that one. If you guys want more of these traumatic stories, shit, I got them. Anyway, I love you guys, my abducted humans, and I will see you guys in the next video from your favorite Haitian homegirl. Why is no one freaking out about the fact that time is moving significantly faster? Come on, you have to have noticed it too. I feel like after 2020, the concept of time has really been skewed. Fridays are getting here at the blink of an eye. Weekends literally feel like 18 hours. I feel like I was just 22. And then I blinked and now I'm 26. And I'm like, holy fucking sh. I understand they say that time moves fast. There's something a little abnormal here. I don't know if you guys have seen this creator's video, but she talked about the universal time being off. And she knows all the scientific terms and she breaks them down in her video. And when I saw that video, I swear to God, it all just made sense. Because I've always thought this, but I couldn't prove it. Basically, in her video, she explains that the center of the earth is now moving slower, which is causing the outer of the earth to speed up. So we're actually going around the sun much faster than we were before. And scientists are actually onto this already, as they are currently trying to figure out what the next steps are. And they have until, I think, November of 2029 to make a decision as to what they're gonna do in terms of time. Something about removing milliseconds and leap seconds so that the speed of the earth can line up with time. Which, if you're a conspiracy theorist, well, I don't even think you have to be a conspiracy theorist for you to know that time is literally made up. Like, it's a man-made concept. It's literally the tracking of the sun. That was the original concept of time. But even that to me is just, it's a little weird to me. Does the sun actually go around the earth every day at the same speed? And if time is not real, how would you calculate that? I don't know. But I recommend you guys go watch that creator's video. She went really in depth. So if you're one of those people who feel like time has really been just speeding, you're not the only one. Universally, which means worldwide, the whole shit is off. So, food for thought. All right, from your favorite Haitian homegirl. Out of all the Haitian stories I've told, I can't believe I forgot to tell this one. This is what happened to my father when he took a different route to come home. I I am back with another spooky story. I remember that night I was sitting in the house waiting for my father to come home. And I was a very anxious kid, so I had trouble sleeping before everybody who was supposed to be home was home. And my father was the only one that wasn't home yet, and it's approaching like 11 p.m., which is pretty strange. And my aunties that were watching us were trying to call him, like blowing up his phone, trying to get in contact with him, and he's not picking up. And it's not just spooky stuff to worry about, because there's also criminals in the streets of Haiti. It's like, what could have possibly happened to him? He was literally supposed to be home 2 hours ago. When suddenly, as we're all talking about it, around midnight, we hear like these rushing footsteps approaching the house. My father did not have his keys, which he was supposed to have them, and he just frantically knocked on the door like, open the door, open the door. My aunties go out front, they open the door, and it's my father. And he looks disheveled. Shirt ripped open with holes in it, one shoe off, and in the face says it all. He just looked traumatized. So as he's coming in, just by how he looks, obviously he must have got robbed. Until he got into the story. So he's coming home from work and he decides to take a different route home. And that route is supposed to be a shortcut and he was supposed to get home faster. And my father, he's not walking, right? He's driving. So he gets in his car, he starts driving, and he approaches this particular area in Haiti. When all of a sudden he starts to see flashing lights. And the lights are so bright that it's literally blinding to him. Like he can't see. And he says that the lights are coming from every direction. Behind him, next to him, and in front of him. It's like he entered heaven, and it was way too bright. Once the lights happened, my father kind of figured what was going on. He did not want to stop the car, so he kept driving whether he could see or not, because it's also not that early, and so he's not expecting people to be on the road. His logic was he can't see whoever's on the road, but they can see him. So if he keeps driving, just move the fuck out the way. When suddenly the road that he's driving on just starts to feel extra bumpy. So the path is clearing up some, and the lights, it looks like it's turning into smoke. So he's able to see a little bit through the smoke. So he's driving and the road is like really freaking bumpy. So he's driving through the bumps when suddenly he felt like he full on hit something. The impact was on the car. Like whatever his car hit must have been big and strong, because the whole car, it felt like the whole car was rolling over whatever it had hit. And still, my father, he's not stopping. So he keeps freaking driving. The smoke clears up. The road is getting normal again, and he's thinking that he's out of the woods. He wasn't, because the trees start whispering. That's the best way he could put it. The trees are whispering. So he's driving. Yes, his windows are up, and he's still hearing. And then amongst all the whispering, he hears somebody call his name and say to get out of the car, and that this is not an area that he should feel comfortable driving in. And my father was not the type of man that you told what to do, so he wasn't gonna get out the car. This is the part of the story that I struggled with hearing even as a kid. As he kept driving, he notices that in the road in front of him, there's a wall that starts to build itself. Yeah. And this wall is like hella tall. Like you cannot see past this wall. And he's seeing these things fly over the walls, going to the trees. And he's just like, oh, hell nah. His plan was to drive straight through the wall. However, his car just shut down. So at that point, he's angry and he decided that enough was enough. So he got out of the car to confront whatever the fuck it was. So he leaves the car and he starts cussing. When suddenly he feels like something grabs him. And in the part of his body that he got grabbed, he winded up going on to have like physical pain in that area for a long time. But they grabbed him, and before he can turn around to react, they ripped his shirt, and he's not seeing who's doing it. He's just feeling. So he's angry. He starts cussing. He starts yelling. And then he's like, the only way he's gonna get out of this is either through God or through death. There's literally a humongous wall in front of him. How the fuck is he gonna get past that? So at that moment, he just starts calling out for Jesus. Jesus, 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 Jesus. As he's praying or whatnot, he remembers that he has liquor in his car. He also has money in his car. So as he's speaking aloud, he's like, yo, if I give y'all liquor and money, are y'all gonna leave me alone? So he walks into his car. He took out his tafia, which is liquor. He had a compartment in his car where he had a bunch of like American pennies. And he just took out as many as he could and just threw them out the car. And then he tries to start his car up again. And it does. Turns the car on. The car's not working, and he just starts driving. And as he's driving, the wall that was right in front of him, the wall turns into smoke. So he drove past, and when all the smoke clears, he was only about 10 minutes away from home. Oh, and to remember the time that my uncle and my dad were coming home late at night, and they had to separate because they were being chased down by loups. Yup. What's not to miss about Haiti? Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys want longer, better spooky stories, you guys better head over to my YouTube channel and subscribe to my YouTube channel while you're there. I love you, my abducted humans. Mwah, from your favorite Haitian homegirl. I didn't specify this in my last video, but no, my father and I no longer speak. We are no contact. And it's actually not even because of the stories that I told. After I moved out, I decided that it would be easier for me to forgive my father. Even though my father has always been physically abusive when he's angry, that was pretty much the norm. My father made it very clear that I was his favorite daughter. So if y'all think I have it bad, imagine how he treated my sister. And I remember the day that my father and I's relationship just started deteriorating. The first time was when my father used to go through my stuff, follow me home from school, and I would have no idea, just for the hopes of finding something to get on my ass about. I was 18, about to be 19 years old at the time. I was dating this girl, and y'all, I had a vibrator, and I kept it under my pillow. Always kept it under my pillow. I think at that point I'm 19, and I'm just thinking like, he's not gonna go through my stuff. So honestly, this vibe is cool under my pillow. So fast forward to Valentine's Day, the girl I'm dating writes me this long 2-page love letter. And at that point, around Valentine's Day, I'm definitely 19 already. And I put the freaking love note right next to the vibrator under my pillow. And come to think of it, I think it might have been way too incriminating. You know, the thing is that it's been quite a while since I've used said vibrator. And keep in mind, this wasn't one of those big bulgy ones, okay? This was like a really small, a very demure, a very mindful little vibrator, okay? And at that point, it's been a good week since I used it. A week later, it's like late at night, and I decide, you know, damn, let me get ready to have a little DJ session. So I reach under my pillow to grab my handy dandy vibrator, and it's not there. The panic. This is a reenactment. I reach under my pillow. I get up from the bed, I flip the shit upside down, nothing. The love letter, however, is still there. And I'm thinking, you know, maybe she rolled off behind the bed. So I move the bed, can't find it. I looked in my drawer, can't find it. I turned my room upside down, I can't find it. Do you know how embarrassing and low you have to be in life to ask your sister that you share a room with if she's seen your vibrator? Anywho's, I don't find it, and honestly, I give up. So much so that I just went on Amazon and I just bought me a new one. The old one's dead. I gave up when it's sad. Now I have to wait for a new one to come in. Cool. I get a new one. I put it in the same spot, but that one never went missing. One day I'm having a conversation with my sister, and I'm like, nah, it's actually crazy how that vibe just went missing completely. Like, that's crazy. It's nowhere in this room. Do we have a ghost or something? And my sister's like, I mean, if the ghost you're referring to is your father, then probably. And I'm like, nah, he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't, cause that's strange. He wouldn't do that. 6 months later, I forget about this. Me and my father, we get into it about something completely different. He was withholding all of my paperwork, my birth certificate, my social security card, passport, everything he had. So anything that I needed to get done for myself, I needed to go through him. But he wasn't giving me none of my shit. So we get into it because I'm 19. I need my shit. And why this man walks into his room, comes back out, and throws my old vibrator into the wall. And I heard the object bang into the wall and fall on the ground. And I looked at it, and I'm sorry, but I could not hide the legit excitement on my face because, I got 2 of them now? And I'm looking at it like, my vibrator. Wait. You had it? For real? That man done cussed me clean out about how I'm a lesbian and how he knows and how he's been basically taking notes on me for the past few months, and I had no idea, and that I'm dating a girl and he knows the girl because I be bringing her over. Listen, he went full investigator on me. At this point, I'm about to be 20, and he basically told me that I'd have to pry my documents out of his cold, dead hands. And then he left. And after he left, I legit just stood there. Like, you really went through my stuff. You read that goddamn note and you took my vibe. You touched that. I was so happy to have the vibe back. It was a vibrator from Adam and Eve. She was like this big, but she was a good one, okay? An effective one. And this was before rose times, okay? Yeah. That was actually the first crack in our relationship. And from there, the rest of the ice continued to crackle until it all just completely shattered. If you guys want more of these traumatizing stories, I got them. I'm your favorite Haitian homegirl. I am back with another spooky story. And you know how they say it be your own man's? It be your own man's. So we're gonna call the person that submitted the story Pablo. And her story dates back to 2013. So it all started when Pablo's grandmother bought her this cute doll. The doll had clothes and shoes, and Pablo loved dressing the doll up. A few days after getting this doll, the doll's shoe just went missing. Without a trace, no one can find it. Mind you, she's young, so she's not thinking anything about it, except for her doll's shoe is missing. Well, a few weeks after the shoes went missing, her grandmother and grandfather just started arguing a lot. Now, Pablo was used to them arguing, doing their little bickering, arguing like an old couple. But this particular argument was not that. This one was really serious. It got to the point where the grandmother wanted to leave the house and get a divorce. Mind you, this would be ending a marriage of 30 plus years. When the grandmother brought up divorce to the grandfather, when he heard divorce come out of her mouth, this is when the grandfather put his thinking cap on and he wanted to look into it. The grandfather refused the divorce and decided to call his niece instead. His niece is a traditional healer. It felt like these arguments between him and his wife were just not normal and some sort of witchcraft had to be involved. Well, a few days later, the niece arrives and an overnight ceremony is held. So the ceremony was held at the house with a lot of different traditional healers present. So while into the ceremony, niece asked the grandmother if the grandmother could go dig up the tiled floor in the middle of the living room. And the grandmother agreed, so they started digging. And evidently, they found the doll's shoe that went missing a few months ago. How did it get under the floor? Well, the shoe had a few new details to it. The shoe was tied with different threads, laced with muthi/traditional herbs. But looking at this shoe that they just found, it's giving very much so somebody planted that there to cause harm, obviously. The niece told the grandmother that it was actually her friend that was responsible for that. If they had not figured that out, that would have destroyed their entire marriage. The grandmother's friend did that because she wanted the grandmother to leave her husband and the house. Grandma's friend wanted grandma's man and grandma's crib. I'd be entitled, and she wanted grandma to walk away from the house and the man so that she can step in and take over. The friend was jealous that the grandmother was married for all this time and she was happy. So every time the grandmother would talk about her husband to this friend, little did she know that this friend was indeed plotting on her relationship. She just could not believe that the grandmother was happily married after all those years. Meanwhile, for her, it was a different scenario, as her husband left her years ago and took the kids. Damn. Double homicide. So backtrack to them finding the shoe in the living room. They decided to take the shoe out of the house, to which the shoe was burned and the entire house was cleansed. The grandmother then cut the friend off after learning about this. Well, I'm glad. She never bought dolls that had clothes or shoes for her or her siblings ever again. It's always that one person that just fucks it up for everybody. This person is from Botswana, and the story took place in a small town in the Northwest Province in South Africa. I did say I was through telling South African stories and that I was going to move on to another place. However, so many people have been submitting stories to me from South Africa. So if you, wherever you are, want to hear a story from your country, be sure to submit a spooky story to me. And if it's interesting enough, I'll tell it. In the meantime, be sure to follow me on Instagram. The link is on the top of my page. And right with that link is my YouTube, where you can subscribe for better, longer, spookier stories. I love you, my abducted humans, and I will catch you guys in the next video from your favorite Haitian homegirl. This is the time that I woke up to my mom and my father fighting, and then they both decide to run away from home. This story took place when I was a child. I must have been like 6 or maybe 7 years old. So the night before, my father comes home, and oh my god, I used to hate when he used to be home, because I swear, mom is so peaceful, but when dad would come around, now don't get me wrong, mommy had her own set of issues, but they weren't as intense or as abusive as my father. So the night before everything goes to shit, my father comes home and him and my mother get into it. And when I tell y'all, motherfuckers is full on fighting, yelling and fighting. My daddy is throwing them and my mother catching them and throwing them. And I'm freaking out at 6 years old. It's so loud, and I don't know how to describe how traumatizing domestic violence actually is to your children, because it fucking is. I don't jump when people make sudden noises because I'm an earthquake survivor. I'm easily startled because of this. The yelling, the screaming, the punching, the hitting, the sounds that you're hearing, and the banging on the walls. To hear a full-on body just bang on the wall, you're a child in your room just like scared as fuck. You don't want to go out there to see what's going on, but you can hear that it's bad. So the night before, they're arguing and fighting, and honestly, I just stayed in my room and cried myself to sleep. At 4 in the freaking morning. So it's 4 in the morning and I get up abruptly to the sound of glass breaking. But when I hear the glass, I start hearing the thumping on the walls, the ah. I'm like, oh my God, they're back at it again. I barely went to sleep last night. When did this start up? So I walk over to the room this time because I'm scared and I was always scared of the dark. My father got a gush on the side of his head. Motherfuckers is bleeding because my mother decided to get her leg back while the nigga was sleeping at 4 in the morning. In Haiti, we had like, you know, those gas lamps and the top is like glass covered. Yeah, my mother took the glass part while my father was sleeping and just pew. That was the sound of the glass breaking that I woke up to. So I'm in the room, my father's holding his head. My mother's just like, yeah, and I got my leg back, yeah. Who the fuck you putting your hands on? And now they're going back and forth. And at that point, my father was hurt and he was not fucking with this. So he starts packing a bag and he's like, I can't do this anymore. Can't live here anymore. He just starts packing a bag. So my mother's like, well, I can't do this no more. So I too am gonna start dramatically packing my bags. And so she does. And I'm standing in the room watching my mother and my father both pack their bags frantically. And I'm genuinely wondering, where the fuck are y'all going? And I have a feeling that me and my sister minding her business in her room are not coming with y'all. What is the deal? They both ran away. This is all happening on Christmas. They both ran away and left both their kids home on Christmas, which is also my sister's birthday. Yeah. So the abuse didn't stop or start with me. It was kind of like a thing. So when I got older, this was pretty much normalized. Because I get a lot of questions like, do you hate your dad? And the answer is, I don't hate my dad. He beat the shit out of me. But no, I never hated my dad because that was normal. Every time I got caught, all I thought was, fuck, I should have been slicker or sneakier. There's also a few questions in the last video asking me if I still talk to my father, and I do not. We are currently no contact. It is not even because of the enormous amount of childhood trauma that this man caused me. It is genuinely because I do believe that my father is a sociopath. Like, I'm not trying to be funny. I know they stopped diagnosing people with sociopathic disorder or whatever, but I genuinely think that my father genuinely has that case. He lacks sympathy, empathy, guilt, all of the above. Also, I want to clear up in the last video where the man stole my vibrator. A lot of people were implying that he's some sort of PDF file, and as much as I get on the internet and I bash him because he deserves it, I would never accuse him of something that he's not. That man never sexually assaulted me or my sister, like never. I would never put that on him. No. The reason why the man stole and kept my vibrator, it's all about control and fear. He kept it because he knew one day he was gonna throw it back in my face to scare me, to tell me I've caught you. He touched it because he needed me to know that he knew what I was doing and that I was in trouble. This has everything to do with controlling me, instilling fear in me, and being straight up intrusive because I had no concept of privacy. I grew up learning boundaries. I never understood why people needed them. So this is becoming a series, so stick around for more traumatizing stories. Your favorite Haitian homegirl. New York is haunted. I've told many stories from Africa and the Caribbean, and let's not neglect the States because a lot also goes on here. I am back with another spooky story, and this one is a submission from New York City. This all started when this person moved to their home in Brooklyn. We'll call the person who submitted the story Julie. This all started when Julie and her man were looking for homes. They wanted to leave their apartment in Queens and get something a little bit more sustainable, long-term. They looked at Brooklyn, Manhattan, Long Island. The best deals that they were finding were in Brooklyn. Specifically, there was this one house that you just could not beat. The price was really good. It was in a remote location. You'd be able to access the bus. It's not that far from a hospital. And the price of the house was really good. Now, Julie knew why, or she thought she knew why the price of the house was so low or so good. She thought that out of all the other houses that she looked at, that one particular house was the least modern one. It looks like that house would be a bit of a fixer-upper, but they would have to spend a little bit, come out of pocket for renovations. But besides that, it was spacious, ready for them to move in. It was a great spot. Julie and her husband closed down on the house. It's fair to mention that the house was right across the street from a cemetery. Julie, however, Julie herself is white and her husband is African American, and they're both not superstitious people. So when they visited the house and they saw that it was across the street from a cemetery, that didn't even raise a question in their heads. Like, they weren't bothered by that at all. There are cemeteries everywhere, and again, they're not superstitious people, nor have they ever had any spooky encounters. So they moved into the house. Julie and her husband, the first couple of weeks staying there, they didn't notice anything weird about the house. It wasn't until they had one of their nieces come over and they put the niece down to sleep in a separate room, and the niece just would not sleep. Constantly crying, constantly running back to their room, telling them that there's a man and a child in her room. When Julie and her man would go to the other room to check it out, there was nothing there. The niece just did not like coming over there. So after she left, they pretty much just moved on. I mean, outside of the fact that they hear things fall in the house, sometimes when they're sleeping, they hear footsteps. But again, this is not a newer house. All of these things, according to Julie, could be explained. The one thing that they were having a hard time explaining was when they started renovations on the house and they found a secret door. It looked like a closet in the basement. There was a secret door inside of the closet, and once they opened the door, they noticed that a lot of dust just started flying out. They go inside of the room and they noticed that there was only one thing in the room. Inside of the room was a doll. They said that this doll was very freaky looking, as it looked like the hair on the doll looked like real human hair. One of the eyes was missing. The doll's skin also had cracks all over it. And the one eye that the doll had was red. Julie's looking at this doll, and the only thing that she can think of is, well, we gotta get rid of it. Because, like, we gotta do construction on the house. So this doll is gonna have to find a new home. So Julie takes the doll and goes outside and throws it in the garbage. What a funny coincidence. It was probably a kid that lived in the house before that didn't think anything of it for the rest of the day. Julie said that she had a dream about the doll later that night. She opened her eyes, it was the doll laying next to her and not her husband. She closes her eyes, reopens it again, and she woke up to her husband sleeping next to her. Move on, and they keep on renovating the house. Now, y'all remember that doll that Julie threw out? They had a construction crew come in to help them break some stuff down. And as the construction crew is working on the basement, they stumble across a doll. One of the men doing construction was way too uncomfortable touching this doll. He called Julie to come handle it. So Julie comes, and to Julie's surprise, it was the exact same doll that she had thrown away literally a couple days ago, in the same spot that she found it. So Julie's like, wow, I could have sworn I thrown that out. She calls her husband, and her husband's like, yeah, you definitely did throw it out. But they have a dog, so Julie's like, oh, the dog probably can have brought it back inside. Julie. So she picks up the doll and throws it away again. But this time, in the middle of the night, same doll appears on her dresser in front of the mirror. And it wasn't a dream this time, because she was able to wake her husband up. And the husband looked, and he was able to see that that doll that they tried to discard of twice reappeared back in the house. And this time, the doll is seated on the dresser, just staring at both of them. And that was the first time that Julie said that she'd ever been scared of the unknown. They spent a terrible night in the house. The doll did not move. And at this point in the morning, Julie calls some of her friends, and her friends are like, don't touch that doll. Just leave it wherever the fuck it's at. Call the landlord or the person you bought the house from and try to get to the bottom of this. Maybe it's a prank. Julie calls the person that she bought the house from. And the person is like, haunted? What? We have no idea what you're talking about. But it's your house now, so it's your problem. Don't call us? And Julie said that ultimately her and her husband made a decision that she was not proud of. They decided to sell the house at an even cheaper price than they bought it. And yes, they left the doll in there. And this house is somewhere by a cemetery in Brooklyn, New York. Alrighty, thank you for submitting that story, Julie. If you guys want more spooky stories, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram just so that I know that it's real, duh. And if you want to submit a story, go ahead and DM me on TikTok or Instagram. Just double check your grammar before you press send. Anyway, I love you, my blessed humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl.